distancing to reduce the spread and risk of getting COVID-19. Practicing social distancing is when one maintains a greater than usual distance away from another person. In public health, it is a practice to prevent sick persons from coming in close contact with healthy people. Recent studies are showing that social distance of 3 feet or more decreases the exposure of COVID-19. Before these restrictions, a person with COVID-19 could infect 2.5 persons in 5 days, 406 persons in 30 days. When you put into practice measures to reduce the exposure activities by half of that one infected person, in 5 days you would possibly only infect 1.25, 30 days, 15 persons. Reduce the exposure of that infected person by 75%, in 5 days you infect 0.625, in 30 days, 2.5 persons. Remember, the virus does not move on its own, people move it. The more space between you and others, the harder it is for the virus to spread. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health. If you have been directly exposed to the new coronavirus or have a history of travel in infected populated areas, it is recommended that you self-quarantine. Identify a room to be used to self-quarantine and limit contact with healthy persons. Keep away from older persons and persons who have medical conditions that affects their immune system. Monitor for any cold or flu-like symptom for up to 21 days and wash hands frequently with soap and water. If you become seriously ill, call your healthcare provider or 0800-664-2273 for guidance. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health.
If you have a cough or a sneeze, cover up to the writing, please. Boys and girls, the entire family, help protect the weak country. Wash your hands properly. Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally. Raise the virus seriously. It took over the world practically. Stealing lives with no remedy. Yeah, pay everybody free up cautiously. Boys and girls, the entire family, help protect the weak country. Wash your hands properly. Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally.
In response to COVID-19, the government of Belize has implemented strict guidelines on persons to practice social distancing to reduce the spread and risk of getting COVID-19. Practicing social distancing is when one maintains a greater than usual distance away from another person. In public health, it is a practice to prevent sick persons from coming in close contact with healthy people. Recent studies are showing that social distance of 3 feet or more decreases the exposure of COVID-19. Before these restrictions, a person with COVID-19 could infect 2.5 persons in 5 days, 406 persons in 30 days. When you put into practice measures to reduce the exposure activities by half of that one infected person, in 5 days you would possibly only infect 1.25, 30 days, 15 persons. Reduce the exposure of that infected person by 75%. In 5 days, you infect 0.625. In 30 days, 2.5 persons. Remember, the virus does not move on its own. People move it. The more space between you and others, the harder it is for the virus to spread. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health. If you have been directly exposed to the new coronavirus or have a history of travel in infected populated areas, it is recommended that you self-quarantine. Identify a room to be used to self-quarantine and limit contact with healthy persons. Keep away from older persons and persons who have medical conditions that affect.
Good afternoon to Belizeans at home and abroad. Welcome to another installment of Ask the Experts, where you, the viewers, get to have your questions answered live on air. Today we're back and we have with us the Attorney General and Minister of National Security, the Honorable Michael Peyrefitte. How are you, sir?
Good to be back, Dorian. Thanks. I'm doing well.
Good. Well, today the Prime Minister held another virtual press conference where he announced that there would be some relaxation in the measures in accordance with the current state of emergency. And you are here today to break those down into more details. This has kind of become must-see TV as people are always anticipating and waiting for you to come on and give us the details when it comes to these measures in accordance with the new SI that was formed. So, Attorney General, what is it that you can tell us about these new measures?
Well, I want to say before we could start, Dorian, that the Prime Minister today announced some major things that will change. But I am here, it's unfortunate for me that I have to be the one to remind the public that there are also major things that won't change.
Okay.
So know for a fact that while there will be some relaxation, there will still be the requirement of some strict adherence of things you have to do. You still can't do certain things, still can't do certain big things. And even though we could do more things now, we have to understand a very simple concept. You know, yesterday a young man was boasting to me, say, he go in a shop and he come back and he never had a no mask and no police catch him. And I'm like, you want a medal for that? You want a prize for that? That's something you boast about. I mean, if you're really big and bad, let me know the next time you're going to do it. But the thing is, though, there are no points for being irresponsible. You can't wear your irresponsibility and stupidity, quite frankly, like it's some badge of honor. You don't protect yourself, you don't follow the protocols, you're putting yourself and your loved ones and your fellow Belizeans at risk. So no matter what relaxations we talked about today, or the Prime Minister told the country today, the Prime Minister was also at pains to say that strict social distancing laws don't change and they are still pretty much in effect. So let's remember that we all have a responsibility as Belizeans to help ourselves. So even if a police officer is not around, or you believe that nobody from the national security apparatus can get to you, that is not a good reason to violate the rules. Please understand that as we seem to be coming slowly and slowly out of this pandemic, there is a possibility of a second wave, or even a third wave.
It's important to note that the regulations might be even more strict than they
Right.
were.
So what happens is that if we behave recklessly now, because of the relaxations that will happen, it could lead us to a situation where we go right back to a total lockdown.
And the lockdown could be far more stringent.
And the lockdown could be very strict. In some territories, the lockdown are 24 hours, you know. Yeah. 24 hours curfew, you can't come out. We don't want to get there. So please, in case I would have forgotten, I want to say that we should not take advantage of the relaxations that we will be given. Let's use them for our pleasure, but also be responsible. Because as well, the police can't be everywhere. So you as a citizen If you see another person doing something, hey, brother, you know, put on your mask, or you're not winning no points by being some kind of rebel or maverick or anything like that. This is a disease that could kill you. So if you behave like you don't have a care in the world, you're putting yourself and other people at risk. So please keep that in mind. No matter what we see and no matter what the relaxations are, we are not out of the woods yet. We are not completely safe yet. We still have to be cautious. We still have to show precaution. And we still have to be responsible people. So I wanted to say that before I get into any of the specifics. And the specifics are as follows.
And before you get into the specifics, I know we have quite a number of questions, to say the least. And I know you'll go through that in detail. But one of the questions over and over, and I want you to get this off the top. What is the status of the curfew? Are we still under curfew?
The curfew remains in place.
Thank you.
8 o'clock tonight, 8 o'clock, put it this way, I can almost assure you, it's up to the National Oversight Committee, not to me. But for the things that we want to accomplish, I can also assure you, from now till the end of June, the curfew will be in place. 8 the night, you have to be in your house till 5 the morning, unless you're a permitted member under the national security apparatus or a healthcare worker. 8 o'clock, the curfew begins. It does not end until 5 in the morning the next day. The curfew is still on for children. That goes from 8 a.m. in the morning until 6 in the evening. So at 6 p.m., if you're under 16, you have to be inside. 8 p.m., if you're an adult, you have to be inside. That has not changed. And remember, no sweetheart pass. I still not sign none, and I no intend for sign none. Because whatever you need to do, there is simply no reason I don't see why you can't do it between 5 in the morning and 8 the night.
Right.
If you're not finished by 8 the night, there's something wrong. So please, remember that. Now, people who exercise, the exercise hours will remain from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. 5 the morning till 8 the morning, not 5 the night, right? People are asking to extend it to 9 a.m. No, it's still 5 to 8. Still only 5 the morning till 8 the morning.
I'm sure if it were up to you, you'd allow exercise.
Yes, because I exercise hourly.
Right.
So the big change with exercising, and remember, it's jogging, running, walking, or cycling. You no longer have to wear a mask when you're jogging, running, walking, or cycling. No. Let me warn people. No get cute, you know, because they will lock you up. No, they walk down the street without a mask, and when the policeman they pull up, you start to run and say, well, I'm in the jog officer, I'm in the run. So I don't need no mask, you're going to jail. Clearly, you can see whether or not a person is exercising or they just to do fool. So don't think that you want to walk without a mask. The policeman they come, you start to run, then holler you with the jog or walk for exercise. That will not work. You're going to jail. So please understand that it is only if you're genuinely exercising, walking, jogging, running in the morning, you're allowed to not have on the mask for the purposes of breathing. We believe that the activity, we have come to a place where we don't need to have the mask when you're doing those stuff. Also, and this is a big change, you are now able to move from district to district. So let me give you an example. If you have not seen your family for the past month or 6 weeks or so, and you're moving and you live in Peyrefitte, and you want to go the Dangriga, or the example you gave every time you come here, Dorian, a person has a home in Peyrefitte but they live in Belmopan, you are now free to move from district to district, community to community freely. However, you must be moving, and you must be moving with a purpose. So if you're going to hail a Grenada Dangriga, get in your car and just go to Dangriga now. Not stop the 3-4 place along the way, take 2 beer, and then always be moving with a purpose. You go, you say hi to your family. If 8 o'clock will catch you by the time you reach back to Belize City, stay at Dangriga for the night because the curfew is still in effect. So now you can move, but move with a purpose. In other words, if you're going to Orange Rock or hail your family, go straight there. Hail them, and then you come back. But remember, when you're in the house with them, or when you're enjoying your family, social distance at all times. Social distance. Because it's important to ensure that we protect ourselves and our families. If you're moving from one locality to the next, you don't know what you're taking or what you may be meeting. So also remember to keep that social distance always in place, even when you're at home. I mean, for as much as you can. So I hope that that is clear for certain people to understand. Now, we put this in there because you heard the Prime Minister this morning talk about people will now have access to public pools, rivers, and the sea. Dive shops and scuba diving and snorkeling are also now allowed. So if you're a dive shop, you're now allowed to open from 5 in the morning to 7 at night. So no night diving, 5 in the morning to 7 at night. If you want to scuba dive, you can scuba dive during that time. However, whilst you're scuba diving, you're not allowed to engage in any fishing activity, because you still can't fishing for sport or anything like that.
So
not as yet.
No spear fishing.
No spear fishing. You scuba dive. You observe the beautiful underwater world that we have in Belize, and do not shoot any fish. Do not go fishing for sport or anything like that. We're getting some reports that some people may use it as an excuse to go and swim but then fish for sport. You will be arrested and you will be charged. We're not at the point yet where we are allowing fishing to happen. Not even if you scuba dive or snorkel or swim. Now, a very, very, very big change is occurring with restaurants. If you run a restaurant that's outdoors, I don't know if you could think about a purely outdoor restaurant in the country.
I can think.
But if you have an open-air outdoor restaurant in the country, you can now open for people to sit in that restaurant. However, no more than 10 people per table, and each table must be 6 feet apart. 6 feet or 1 Peyrefitte, as the big tune said.
A big tune.
Big tune, wicked tune. Very catchy tune. But I repeat, if 10 people no must eat together, then no care 10 people, man. Care 1, 4, 5. Use your head. Be sensible. Not because you can do something, you do it. So if 6 of you can go or 5 of you can go, that is the best thing to do. So if you're an open-air restaurant, people can only go by reservations only as well. Okay. No walk-ins. You make your reservation, you manage your crowd, and then you make sure that no more than 10 persons per table, and you make sure that those tables are 6 feet apart. Now, let me go into more details with that. Let me give some examples of businesses that we know. So just for the purposes of examples in my head, I'm not saying anything about them in particular. Look at a business like Chonsan Palace. Mm-hmm. They are clearly not an open air business. Now, I say this because I want to be careful with Chonsan. They have been an establishment that they have followed the rules completely and to a T. Sometimes to my chagrin, they make a no Peyrefitte. If you're not having your food in 20 minutes, you're going to get it.
Right.
And I need the food, so I make sure I get it on time.
And they've been very helpful in assisting the
In assisting
frontline
the public,
workers
we have to
as
say
well.
that. Chonsan Palace, for example, can't fling open the two door, open two window and say, see now, we don't open air restaurant now. No, that will not work. You cannot get cute in the process. A place like Chonsan Palace is clearly an indoor restaurant. They can still operate, but they will have to continue to only do delivery, takeout, or drive-through. So if you're not an open-air restaurant and you've been operating before, you could still operate. It's just that you can't take people where you come and sit down at the restaurant. Take an establishment now like Bullfrog Inn here in Belmopan. Bullfrog Inn has a restaurant, but a part of that restaurant is indoors, and a part of it is outdoors. So what Bullfrog Inn would have to do is to close that indoor part and can only serve food and customers in the outdoor portion of that restaurant. So if you have a restaurant with a P-side that indoors with AC and P-side that outdoor with natural air, you can only have people seated under the rules I just said in the outdoor part of it. You understand me? I hope that's very, very, very clear.
Very clear.
You want to open, there are a number of them on the beaches. You have like, I think there's a Tipsy Tuna or Placencia.
Yes,
They're
sure.
clearly an outdoor, open air restaurant.
Right.
So people can go there, no more than 10 per table, 6 feet apart per table. Places like that can operate. If you are an indoor place, you must only continue to deliver a pickup or drive-through. If you have outdoor and indoor facilities, you can only have people sit down at the outdoor part of the restaurant. If you are a hotel and you have a restaurant in that hotel, but that restaurant is only an indoor restaurant, then clearly you have to go by the old rules. That restaurant can only do takeout, delivery, drive-through, or room service. But if you have a restaurant that's both indoor and outdoor, then you have to close the indoor part just for delivery and stuff like that,
Right.
and you can have people sit on the outside. You take a hotel like
Ramon's.
Phoenix, the Phoenix Hotel in San Pedro. You have an inside piece and you have an outside piece. So people can only sit now on the outside part of that. Ramon's Village, I think, is the same thing.
Ramon's is the same,
They have
yeah.
an inside and an outside piece. People can sit only on the outside piece. So I'm only giving those places as an example to give you an idea as to what will be allowed and what won't be allowed. Next thing. I don't know if you have any specific questions on that.
No, we'll
Ola.
get to the questions after. I'd like you to go through it one by
All right.
individually because you'll answer a lot of the questions by going through
I
it.
want to say, I just want to remind people, the spa thing still closed. Sorry, ladies, the waxing, but only ladies, because I got some man wax there, no? Ladies, gentlemen, no waxing, no massage, no facial, none of that as yet. The rules as it pertains to beauty salons and barber shops, they remain the same.
So it's head, nails, toes.
Yeah, head, nails, toes, the essentials.
Good.
Daycare centers, childcare centers, nurseries, and other similar establishments or businesses, closed. Discotheques, bars, rum shops, nightclubs, closed. Gymnasiums, sporting complexes remain closed. There's been a push for gymnasiums, but the National Oversight Committee said it's best for gyms to remain closed. Casinos and gambling establishments are closed. Still no bolido.
Okay.
So-
I had a question. Someone in particular had asked about casinos. So
Yes, the member, and he's looking at the casino. He hit me to this day about what can we do. Now, all public roads, all public pools, beaches, and rivers are open to the public for the specific purpose of swimming and the following conditions. What are we opening the pools, rivers, and seas for? To swim. And remember, for the people who want to scuba dive or snorkel, they can snorkel. But even when you go to a river or the sea, you must strictly adhere to social distancing protocols, except as it relates to parents or guardians and their children, and to persons of the same party. So if 4 or 5 people want to swim the sea or the river, and you have a young child and you want to dip the child and swim in the river or the sea, clearly you have to be close to that child. No more than 10 persons in the same party or the same group can go together at any one time at the river and swim and hang out by the river. Social gatherings, parties, picnics, barbecues, or other similar social activities are prohibited. We go to the river and the sea, figure swim. We're still not at the stage where we want to encourage people figure hang out unnecessarily. Now, if you want to go and swim at the river, you go to the river. The ideal thing, Dorian, you drive down to the river, you get out your vehicle, you change into your swimming gear if you never have swimming gear, you go swim. When you're done swim, you come back to as our people would say, you come back to the river bank, and you change your clothes back, you get back in your vehicle and you go home, you're going to swim. It is hard to imagine a scenario where at least people may not want to come back, relax, maybe drink a little Coke or eat a little sandwich, then get back in the vehicle and go home. You will be able to do that, but on a very limited and quiet basis. You're not going to a river, go get drunk. We're not going to sea, go get drunk. Because remember, public drinking, you're amazing, we as Belize people, certain laws we don't really pay no attention to, Public drinking is a crime, Public drinking is still one crime.
and rivers and the sea, the public.
That's a crime. If you're in the river bank or you're in the river and you get drunk in the river, it's a crime. So please, when you go to the river and the sea, remember, the primary objective is to go and get a swim. Now, make I go straight to sandbar. Yes, we can now go to sandbar.
So we got sandbar pass.
We have sandbar pass, but make a wait for sandbar first. I want to get into more details about that. But I just wanted to say that we can go now and we can swim. But remember, and this is where we make a plea to the public. As we do more things, Dorian, as we engage in more activities, we want people to be sensible. Because you go to the river, several people at the river, that one you know see long time we had beef with, we no start fight, and then the police has to be called to an area to deal with that, and you take away the policemen from doing other things that are far more important than a silly fight over some silly ego. You understand me? So when we're doing these social activities, such as going to the river for a swim with your family or your friends, make it quick. If you got a sandbar, swim fairly towards and come back home, man. Not hang up too long, because we also want to give other people a chance. Because you would expect, as a sensible person, you pull up the sandbar and you see 100 boats there. Man, you don't want to be a part of that. So let's not crowd the places either if we don't have to. Nobody can stop you, but remember, social distancing is very, very important. So the idea is to have people figure swim in the sea, swim in the river, swim in the pool. Not forget drunk and throw no party. Please remember that. Now, let's go to the next issue, which is the boat. Where swimming in a sea or river entails the use of a boat or other vessel, people can now use their private boats to go to quay, to swim, to go to sandbar to swim, or wherever it is you like to swim, you can now use your boat. However, the boat shall be limited to seating capacity. So if your boat only could hold 8 people, only 8 people business in a boat. And everybody who know they swim have to wear a mask. Okay. So when you jump in at the boat, that Belize City or the Boom or wherever you have boat, you go down the river, until you start to swim in that boat, everybody must have on a mask. When you get to sandbar, and if you decide you don't want to swim, you must always have on a mask at all times. For protect yourself, you know. For protect yourself. Because we actually cannot have people wearing a mask while you're swimming. We just have to take the risk that people will have to swim but without a mask because you don't want that restriction on your nose and mouth. So yes, you can take your private boat, you can go out to sandbar or quay or whatever, but remember the overall theme, Dorian. You must always practice social distancing. So if we pull up the sandbar in a wee boat, and another boat did a sandbar too, say hi, say hello, we're going on, hello, we're going on, and everybody hanging your own party, hanging your own group.
Your own pod, so to speak.
Your only crew where you come with stick together. So you can limit the spread of any germs or anything like that between each other. So that is what we're promoting, where people need to get out, people need to leave salt water in their system, people need to leave river, but you have to do it responsibly. Churches. I'm not vexed with we, you know, because the church people, they sit down for the National Oversight Committee. So this is what was agreed to. There will be a church or place of public worship in any facility or public place which involves the participation of any member of the general public or a congregation is allowed to operate under the following conditions. No care how big the church, you can't have more than 10 people. So your church could be the size of Civic, you still can't have more than 10 people. Remember we said for the shops, the amount of people who could go into the shop depends on the size of the shop. Mm-hmm. Now in this case, look how big the church big. No more than 10 people. And if your church that small and can hold people, 10 people, so that they can be 1 Peyrefitte apart, then you can't hold 10 people. Because the social distancing laws and the protocols will trump anything that these allow you to do. So the church will be able to have service. Whilst you're in church, everybody must have on a mask during the service. If you're at church, you have to wear a mask. I guess except when you have to take Holy Communion for those who take Holy Communion. No children shall be allowed to participate in the mass. So no picnic will go to church, physically in our building a church. Now when we say children, we differentiate from when we said before 16 and below the curfew applies to. When we say children in this case, nobody under 12 years old is allowed to attend the church service. So if you're between 12 and 16, you're still a minor, but you're not a child. And if you're 15, for example, you could go to church. No. Remember we said you can swim in the river or the sea, but you must practice social distancing. Now let's go to the next major thing. There's a protocol now for people who break the curfew. Not break the curfew, sorry, but break the borders. If you come through Belize illegally, or you leave Belize illegally and you're caught, The process is that on that spot, you will be immediately be detained, and on the spot, you will be tested by a Ministry of Health official. When that Ministry of Health official does that spot check on you, and you're not displaying any signs of COVID-19 or anything like that, it is only under that circumstance that you will be taken to court. Once you're taken to court, whether you plead guilty or not guilty, you will immediately be taken to quarantine for about 21 days. After your quarantine period is over, if you had pleaded not guilty and the magistrate gave you bail, only then will you be set free to enter the society until your trial comes up. If you plead guilty and you have to go straight to jail for that 3 months, you will be taken straight to jail after the 21 days in quarantine. In other words then, once you are arrested for violating the border, you will not be let into this society nor go to prison until you have finished that quarantine period. And the law sets out for you very clearly the procedure for that. Prime Minister mentioned that now certain people will be required to come back into the country. If you are a returning student or a graduate of an educational institution abroad, you can now return to Belize. If you are a returning national who lives in Belize, you want to come back to Belize when you're stuck out there, you can now come home. If you are a resident diplomat, you can now come home. However, you're not just one haul up to the border and say there, let me in. No, sir. No, sir. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I was told by Chairperson Judith Alpuche of the task force, on Monday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will put on the COVID-19 website a form for you to fill out, that you can fill out online. When you fill out that form, that will go into a database. The officials are going to make a tally and come up with a list of people who they are ready to accommodate. Because we can only allow people to come in at a pace that we can accommodate them at. We will need officials, quarantine guards, all kinds of things. So we need to have it come in at a pace we can manage and absorb. Only when you are notified that you should come to Belize, that when you come. And when you come in, be fully prepared that you will enter immediately into quarantine. The Prime Minister said there are certain people who will be given an exception. If you're a cancer patient, naturally you shouldn't go right into a quarantine facility. You could be allowed to stay home and be monitored from home. But if you are a regular person just coming back home, you will go into quarantine. But you can only go into quarantine or even show up at the border and be allowed in if the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Immigration, Health, and National Security have given you permission to come at the border. We will then meet you at the border and bring you across and take you straight into quarantine. My beloved brothers and sisters abroad, do not pull up at the border midnight and start a bar say you want to come in and Belize, because you will not be allowed to come in unless you have been given prior approval by Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the National Security apparatus. For some people, they'll be able to come in quicker than others because they want to afford to pay the different hotels for them to be quarantined in. Those people who will be depending on the state to finance their quarantine and house them in the quarantine units will have to wait their turn and get in a queue, because then we can only allow the amount of people in that we can accommodate. if you're prepared to pay for your own quarantine expenses, then naturally you will get to be able to come in back into the country quicker than a person who is not willing to cover their costs. Now, like I said, I want to remind people that there will be a Ministry of Foreign Affairs document on the COVID-19 website on Monday. You go to that and fill out that form. It would not hurt you as well to make sure that you contact an embassy if you're somewhere that has an embassy, an honorary consul, so that they can help facilitate the process. And Dorian, I want to repeat certain things. The borders are still closed unless you have permission to come in. The curfew is still in effect for children and adults. Wear a mask at all times when you're outside. Social distance at all times. Work from home if you can. And things may be open, but you still cannot loiter, wander about, or move without a purpose. We are not out of the woods yet. This is not a free-for-all. We can do more things, but under strict rules and regulations. And if you are found to be in violation of those restrictions and rules and regulations, you will be arrested and charged. And unfortunately for some people, they will have to go to jail. So that's where we are right now, Dorian. I want to remind everybody that what I said will be the new rules and regulations, or the amendment to the rules and regulations, will come into effect when we wake up the morning, the 15th of May. Tomorrow, the 15th of May. So tomorrow morning, you can swim in the river, you can swim in the sea, do it responsibly. Not go bash down the river or sea, but go swim, get the salt in your system, swim and come back home. But remember, tomorrow night the curfew is still in effect. 6 o'clock, the curfew for children is still in effect. Restaurants can have people dining if they're open air, but the restaurant will still have to close 7 o'clock. Those things don't change. And I hope people appreciate that while there will be more freedom of movement and freedom to do more activities, at the same time, it must be done within parameters to ensure that we are safe. And I think that's all I should say for now.
All right, AG, well, we'll get into the questions, and we have, like I said before, we have quite a bit of them. A lot of them have been answered, however. Some of them are a little more specific, and some actually, just some people just see clarity with regards to, which is why you're here. No,
some people just hard.
That too. No, this question here, believe it or not, is not from your mother.
Okay.
But the rationale behind Noble Leader is that we want people to be able to save their money and, and so we don't allow frivolous spending and such.
That's what I was told, yes.
That's okay. That's what you were told. I know you're not the decision maker.
Right.
You're just a messenger. But were the rationale behind closing casinos, was it because of the economic impact or because of social distancing?
Well,
if you happen to know.
Well, from what I was told, it's both.
Okay.
The casino is a place that's totally enclosed. I've been in there a couple times, and I don't even think they have a window in there. The way casinos are designed, the germs that go in there and stuff like that remain in there. They hardly get any fresh air, and they're the perfect breeding ground for viruses such as COVID-19. So it is one of those places, unfortunately, is one of those places where it's the easiest to get COVID-19 if you are to spread it. And as well, we want to have Belizeans, as the government and most people start to make huge sacrifices. We want people to, quite frankly, not have an avenue where you can have too much discretionary spending as far as it comes to the need to buy basic goods and services for your family. We understand that gambling is a popular vice, but at the same time, we will want to encourage people as far as we can to make sure that they spend the money on what they need to spend it on to have us survive during this special period. And it's the same concept with Bolido. What's more popular than Bolido? But when you go to a grocery store, a convenience store, we would want people to be purchasing basic needs rather than gambling, to be honest with you.
Okay. Another question with regards to exercise. There are quite a bit of questions when it comes to exercise. Now, exercise we've established are between the hours, is allowed between the hours of 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. Will sporting facilities such as the Marion Jones track be open
No.
for exercise?
No.
Okay.
Sporting complex, because we don't want to get into activities, no. We want, the reasoning behind that is that while you want people to exercise, it's important for them to be walking, jogging, running. We don't want people in a concentrated area. If you go into a stadium or an arena, you're in a concentrated area. If you're on the street, usually when you run past a certain place, it's unlikely you'll pass there again. When you're in a track, you're going around in one place, and that creates more congestion that would make it easier for the disease to spread.
Okay. Now, going to churches. If churches have outdoor masses following 6 feet social distancing, can there be more than 10 people?
No. 10 people at church. That's why we say any facility, public place or space. So even if you're outside, you're doing your social distancing for that church service, that defined area for that church service, no more than 10.
Okay, I have another question when it comes to churches. 10 people in a church. The pastor, reverend, father, bishop, whoever it is that is leading the congregation.
10 people in the congregation.
Okay.
Apart from the people who are administering it.
So you can have a choir, you can have...
No, listen to me, man. I mean, 10 people in the congregation and only the necessary people in the church.
Required to hold a
the
service.
The priest, and whoever needs to assist the priest.
Okay.
Okay?
And
there was no contemplation for a choir yet to be in the church service.
Right.
Now remember, the National Oversight Committee has already informed me that in another week or two, if we continue like this, and because church is good and a lot of people want to go to church, they will increase it to 25, or maybe even 50 beyond a certain point, and at that time maybe the choir can come in. But even the church representative at the National Oversight Committee was not pushing for a choir. You have the priests, the priest, the altar boy, and whatever 1 or 2 assistants they have, and the 10-member congregation. Choirs, not as yet. Because remember, by nature, to get the best song from a choir, you have to be within 6 feet of each other. So, no choirs as yet.
Okay, so when it comes to the people in church, the congregation, they must wear the mask, but the people administering the service, do they have to wear a mask while speaking as well?
Everybody must wear a mask in the church.
Can they remove the mask while speaking, or they just have to have the mask on at all times?
We talk and we have our mask.
True, very true. Okay. Let's move on. I'm sure we'll have a few more questions from the churches flowing in, but let's move on to restaurants. Now, the big thing last time was, we like with tacos. So, street vendors, food trucks.
Still out, still no.
No.
Street
Okay.
vendors and food trucks are still out, and I know exactly where to get to. Street vendors and tacos and they're on the street. they're in a public place. An open air restaurant will be in a defined area, a defined property off the street. So even though you might have an open air restaurant, it's not on public property. And not only that, it is prepared in some form of controlled environment, not in the open air for the most part. But I don't want to argue for the NOC, but we said it the last time and we continuously say it. You can prepare your tacos on private property, do your barbecue on private property, and then just do takeout and delivery, and you're good to go. For example, you know, I don't want to get in trouble, you know, so I have to mention two spots that orange one, right? you have Mercy's, which seem to be the most popular place for Belize City people, because it's the first place to meet.
Right.
So you take Mercy's, for example. They're not on the street. They are in a building that's just off the sidewalk.
Right.
So yes, you can't pull up and sit down on a stool no more and eat your tacos, but nothing prevents them from making it there. You tell them how much you want, they wrap it up for you, they give it to you, and you go. Because they are not physically on the street. We don't want food vendors as yet to be on the street, because that is what creates a lot of issues when you're on the street. Prepare it in your yard. I got a call just now from people from Cayo. You can do the barbecue in a private property, have people line up outside to get it if you have to, and then they get their barbecue and leave.
Okay. But no, when it comes to food trucks, I know of one. There's a very popular food truck in Belize, and I believe last week they had some issues or whatever. What if they were to set their food truck, park their food truck on private property and offer takeout and delivery services?
That would work.
They would be able to operate.
That would be similar to a barbecue person or a tacos person.
Okay.
Prepare it on private property, and then
Or park the truck on private property.
Truck on private
and
property,
people can just pick up
and
and
people
go.
can pick up.
Adhering
and
to
go.
social distancing.
Adhering to social distancing. You line up same way. You get your food and you leave.
Wonderful. I can get Miss Debs next week then. Okay. Okay, daycares. What is the situation
Closed.
with daycares? Still closed.
No form of daycare or babysitting. Remember the last time we were here, the Ministry of Human Development had said they were closing all of their daycare kindergarten schools. But generally the law had still allowed for nurseries and daycares to open. However, we immediately changed that and said no daycares can open. No daycare.
No, I want to go back to restaurants because I'm reading the queue of questions, but
Yes.
it's kind of all over the place, but I
Yes.
kind of want to stick to one subject and exhaust those questions
Yes.
before we move on to another subject.
Yes.
So let's go back to restaurants and food vendors. Now, what about a food vendor who is a mobile food vendor, rides his bike, sells burgers already prepared, pre-wrapped, and they just,
No.
you know,
Park your bike on private property and sell it. Take out, delivery, or drive through. If you have one cart full of burger and you deliver it, you have to leave your house and deliver it to one spot. That's it.
okay.
You can't go. Unfortunately, the food people, and they're some of my favorite people, and they ride and they carry a bike with the meat pie and your bike. Not right now. You cannot be on a public place conducting business. Park your bike at one spot and then sell it from a private property for takeout only.
Now, AG, you mentioned earlier when it comes to open air restaurants,
Yeah.
and you mentioned certain restaurants. You have quite a vast knowledge of restaurants in Belize, actually.
Oh,
It seems that you've been to a few.
I like eating.
So now there's a restaurant you made mention of, like for instance, beach restaurants, like in some of the tourist areas like Placentia, Kikaka.
Yes.
I know there are a couple popular restaurants that happen to be on the beach, open air.
Right.
They also serve alcohol.
Right.
They kind of dub it to restaurant / bar.
Right.
Bar and grill, so to speak. No, they're open. They're allowed to open. They're allowed to operate, adhering and maintaining 1 pair of feet distance
Right,
between
right,
tables.
right.
Will they be able to also just serve alcohol, if people are at those tables, they can just go and have drinks.
No,
Like what?
it's limited at this point to just food, from what I'm told.
Okay.
Now, if you have a restaurant license and you are an official restaurant, this is the distinction. If you go to that restaurant strictly for the purpose of drinking, then you're operating like a bar, and that's not allowed. If you're consuming food primarily, and you get wine or you want to drink a beer or something like that, then that's different. Right. That's all considered a part of dining. But you have to go there primarily to eat.
Okay.
And you have light alcohol with your food. That should be fine. But if you go to a restaurant and not primarily eating, and you clearly only the drink, then you will be committing an offense along with the establishment that's selling you that liquor.
Okay, now let me get a little more specific when it comes to capacity at these open air restaurants.
Right.
Open air restaurant, we've established, okay, 10 people maximum at a table.
Right.
But is there a limit to how many people can be at the restaurant?
It depends on whether or not you can have those people 6 feet apart.
Okay. So there's no capacity as long as every table is 6 feet apart
Right,
and no more than 10 people.
Right? If your establishment is so huge that you can have 1,000 table with 10 people around it and they're all 6 feet apart, more power to you.
Okay. No, when it
But we're saying that you would be able to do that. But does that make sense? You're running a risk when you do that. So we don't know of any place that have that massive capacity. But even though you can do 10 person per table 6 feet apart, try and manage your crowd. And remember, it's by reservations only.
Right. Now,
we are going to the restaurant, go eat. You're not going to spree.
Right. So when it comes to that, along those same lines, when it comes to wearing masks.
Yes.
So if you're not actually consuming food at that moment,
wear your mask.
Your mask has to remain on.
Remain your mask.
Okay.
Because you have some people, 6 hours going at dinner, then all we want to eat. Well, I am never the one not eating, but all the way, some people might not eat. But if you're not eating, consuming the food, then you wear your mask. Because if you're not consuming any food, then you shouldn't be consuming any alcohol either.
Okay, let me see if I have any more of these.
And restaurant owners, be vigilant. You can feel free to say, listen to me, we can leave beer before we eat, and maybe one Guinness before we eat or whatever, but they're not wrong after wrong. That's not the purpose of allowing people to dine at the restaurant.
Okay.
Go get drunk home.
Okay, so, all right, so we've exhausted the restaurant questions, I think. Well, I haven't even checked my phone. I'm sure I have more questions there. But, okay, so let's go into the transportation sector. When it comes to taxis, can they now park at their association stand?
No. Still can't park at the stand. You see, it's a similar vein as the tacos and street vendors. We want to limit, or practically as far as we can, eliminate any establishment that is on a public place or a public street or road.
Okay, are clothes vendors still barred from selling their goods at markets? Are markets still restricted to produce and meats and food?
Well, I mean, if you have places that,
because you have those.
if you have an established place and it's enclosed within the market, then you can operate.
Okay. When it comes to BPOs, everything still remains in place from the prior side?
Still remains for them.
Okay.
They still have to social distance, 10 feet apart. Spot checks can still be done on them by the Ministry of Health and the like, because we found that the statistics have shown that many of the COVID-19 cases, especially within the Caribbean, have come from BPOs.
Okay, and the Prime Minister made mention of it. I have a question here, but I mean, I think it goes without saying, but the Prime Minister made mention of it. And similarly, you made mention that the curfew is still in place. Now, when it comes to mass, that law is still in place.
Still in effect. Whenever you go up on the street, public space, you must wear a mask.
Okay.
And remember, no sweetheart pass. So not even ask.
You haven't signed any?
I haven't signed any. So if anybody say I signed any, then lie.
Okay. So in regards to students, studying abroad in Chetumal,
Yes.
with the intentions of only exiting Belize so that they can continue their studies,
They
is
still,
there a process for that?
Yes.
But they can go, but will they have an issue
no,
coming
remember
back?
the borders are closed. You can't go nor come.
Okay.
But if you're a student needing to attend school in Chetumal, you're leaving the country, that should not be difficult at all. Simply inform immigration, customs, Ministry of Health, and they will easily facilitate you. But they will develop the protocol as to how that will occur.
Now, when it comes, I'll stay away from that. I guess that's a question. I'm still trying to get somebody from the task force to come on so that they can answer some of the questions with regard to the rationale behind some of the decisions. Like, I know you're not a decision maker, but I mean, a lot of questions are asked. Why is the rationale for exercising in the morning and not in the evening? And so we'll leave
That
that.
will be from a member of the NOC.
Yeah, so we'll leave that to
What
them.
happened is that the NOC they come up with their presentation. It comes to cabinet, and cabinet has an input as well. So, in that sense, I do have a say as a member of cabinet, but we have really decided to defer many of the analysis and decision making to the NOC, and the NOC is cabinet is represented on the NOC by the Prime Minister. So, and naturally, his position is generally taken after he has canvassed us. But if cabinet takes a position, and the churches, the NGOs, the National Trade Union Congress, the business community, if they disagree, then we will always defer to the NOC in general for direction.
All right. Now, okay, so now if your workers live, for instance, this person has a compound and he has employees who lives on the compound, are they allowed to do business operate on that compound after 8 p.m. if they live there?
If they live there and
Yes,
it's private property?
Yes, it's private property. They have a compound, a warehouse, so to speak. Let's say they're doing inventory in that warehouse after 8 p.m., but the workers, the employees, actually live on that compound.
Well, no, there are only certain businesses that are allowed to go 24 hours.
Okay, but they're not operational as far as open to the public. They're just doing, like, for instance, inventory or something to that.
If you are on a private property, then pretty much you can do what you want on your private property as long as you're not operating certain things that are not allowed to be operated under the law. Now, if people live there and they still, if people work from 8 in the morning and still work after 8 the night up to midnight, then I think the Labor Department needs to visit these people.
Okay.
So they may not have a state of emergency issue, but they will have a labor law issue.
Now, another question I have here is, okay, back to exercising with regards to recreational sporting activities.
My favorite topic, exercising.
Right, which is why I came back to that. When it comes to like playing tennis, basketball, or sports amongst friends,
No.
but it's still close contact sports.
It was not, no.
There's no social distancing in that in basketball.
Right, well,
yeah.
you see, the NOC maintained their position that they only wanted to allow running, cycling, jogging, and walking.
All right. I just hold on. I just saw something here. Oh, this is a question that comes up a lot. It seems that there's been some people. Well, some people are claiming that the police have had a different interpretation of the laws when it comes to this. When you're in a private vehicle, driving by yourself, or let's say you're with your significant other, must you wear a mask?
No, you don't must wear a mask when you're in the vehicle and it's moving, or even if it's closed up and you're stationary. But if you're pulling up upon a checkpoint, then everybody should put on their mask, because then you're looking to expose yourself and the policeman at that point. So I would say, if you leave the house, even though you'll be in your vehicle, still have the mask handy while you're in the vehicle, because you never know when you have to come out of the vehicle. Suppose you say, well, I only went in my vehicle, I not come out of my vehicle, so I don't carry no mask. And there's a checkpoint, and the policeman finds it necessary to search your vehicle, to search you based on suspicion, and you come out of the vehicle, then you're in violation of the law. So keep a mask at all times, so that if you have to roll down the window or come out of the vehicle, you could just slap on the mask.
Okay.
I really don't see what the difficulty with that. It's like when we talk about 10 grams of marijuana, somebody actually asks, well, what if I grow a tree that only produces 10 grams?
Okay, now, when it comes to employers, you spoke about labor not too long ago, but employers who are not mandating their employees to wear masks. And so the concern comes from...
And those people have to face the public?
Well, not necessarily have to face the public, but they're in an environment with other people. And this comes from the employee, one person, they're an employee at somewhere.
And we ask that employee to notify the police so we can take the necessary steps.
Okay. That way, because the employee does not feel safe with...
Any place of work, you must have social distancing, you must wear your mask. And I can't imagine any business that doesn't deal with the public. So you have your business, you have to deal with the public, you're dealing with people who come from different households, wear the mask. Social distance and wear a mask. And remember, the employer has a duty under the law. It's not his or her choice, the employer. If they have a duty to try and figure out how they can have people work from home so that the office is not crowded.
Okay, the funeral service protocol remains
the same. Nothing changes with that.
Working hours still 9 to 4 for public offices?
Still remains. Nothing changes with that.
Okay, now, students who are willing to pay for quarantine accommodations so a student coming back home, they're willing to pay for their quarantine accommodations.
Yeah.
Now, if they come back home, they cannot quarantine at home. They must quarantine at a designated quarantine location.
Yes.
So if they're willing to pay, will they have a choice? Like if they're, let's say, 4 different hotels,
right.
do they have a choice at which hotel they want to stay?
They will be given a list.
Okay.
And say, look, these are the approved places, and then you choose one.
Okay, no. Can open-air restaurants hire a DJ? It's there, I asked, sorry.
No, man. We allow people to go eat, man. Not party. You
Right.
bring in DJ, you want to start to dance, and no, please. Not as yet.
Okay. No. Okay, so let's be clear. Can we or can we not move from district to district for recreational purposes?
Yes, we can.
We can, okay.
I mean, the Good River and then Nakayo and by Churchyard and so if you live in Belize City, you have to be allowed to move. Now remember, no be upstart to no policeman who stop and ask you where you're going, you know. Sir, where are you going? No cuss up the policeman and say, oh, well, you can move district to district. No, the question me, no. Just say where you're going. Officer, I'm going to the river, go swim me and my family. Thing done. Because no, you can move for that purpose. But remember this. Nothing interferes with the authority of the national security apparatus, you know. Even if you're doing something legitimate, any police officer can question you and to find out what you are about or where you're going or not going. We are in a state of emergency. Please remember that.
No. Yoga studios are treated as gymnasiums. Yoga studios.
Yoga studios.
Those are treated as gymnasiums, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Also, here's one. Where's that? Yes. So if we're promoting domestic tourism, what about the opening back of the reserves and parks and for like hiking their various trails and is cave tubing, will that then be allowed? So the archaeological sites, and is there any provisions for that as we
Not
speak?
as yet.
Okay.
The NOC has given no instruction on that as yet.
All right.
Hopefully they hear these questions, and like I said, give your input into the National Oversight Committee, and hopefully you can influence them to make that change. But for now, it's only the hotels, the swimming pools, the beaches, the sea, and stuff like that. That's as far as they're willing to go as per their instructions to me.
Okay, here's someone who manages a private island hotel. Can small families, 8 to 10 persons, book a day visit to use our private beach for the day between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.?
Yes, they can.
Okay, that's allowed.
That's
Wonderful.
Because now, before, remember, you had to go to the hotel only if you're going overnight. But now, you can go to the hotel just for the day. Like and many places are designed like that. Like I said, I don't want to be calling out places, but I only can give examples what I'm from. Take Hopkins. You have a Hopkins Bay Hotel. The only way to access that beach from the road is to go on their property. So they can allow you to come on that property, and they can allow you then to use the beach and from there, or use their property, for example, unless you choose to walk on the reserve and not enter their property at all.
So,
Now, if you go down a resort, and you carry your own liquor or whatever about, and you get drunk on the resort, private property resort, then that's different than being drunk on the beach or on the sea, because then it's not public drinking.
right. Kayaking as a form of exercising or canoeing, that's allowed?
Running, jogging, walking, cycling.
Okay.
But you
so-
can go in the sea if you want jump in the river, and if you want kayak or whatever, then that's, if that's a form of activity in the sea, then that's fine. But to say that you're doing it because you're exercising, I don't know. Just not say the exercise. Say that way you like it for fun.
So you to get in while we out now. All right. So a lot of people, what they like to do for fun is going to Kikaka.
Yes.
And so that area at the end of the South Island where people like to hang out, they're down there at the Split.
But
So
area at the South Island?
the Split.
Right, the Split.
Yes. Now they can open for business now, and because it's an outdoor, they serve food.
Well, the restaurant, yes.
And so people can now congregate there, keeping
But
sick, and
you
then
must
swim there.
social distance. They can operate as a restaurant. People go on no more than 10 per table, 6 feet apart. So each party must be 6 feet apart.
Okay.
You go there, you eat your food, light liquor. You can't go to Split, go spree and get drunk. That's not what this is about. Right? You go to Split. If you want to go to Split, you go swim. You go to the restaurant. Maybe you get the light alcohol that comes with food, and that's it. But it's not about popping up ice box filled with liquor and just get drunk and you have to walk back through the street drunk. You will be arrested. And remember, people like to jump on San Pedro and Kikaka for how they operate sometimes. And I jump on them myself. But you have to understand, show respect to the people as well. If you're from Belize City and you're visiting somewhere, respect those people in that area as well. Not go there go destroy the people in place and you drive back to Belize City or come back the boat in a Belize City with your boat. If you choose to go to Kikaka, which you're allowed to do now, go to the island with respect for the locals who live there, and respect for your local Belizeans, and respect for the environment that you're there to enjoy. Be responsible and sensible, please, throughout these new relaxations that we have.
There was an incident yesterday with regards to a taco vendor on Coney Drive who was on private property and was shut down. Would you be able to speak to that?
I don't know about any such incident, but I can tell you, if he or she was on the street, then they can't do that, plain and simple. If they had their establishment on private property and doing only takeout, then the police shouldn't have stopped them. But I don't know about any incident like that. I don't know the details of it, so I wouldn't be able to say much about it.
Okay. I think, AG, you've answered quite a bit of the questions. A lot of these questions are repetitive, and again, if your question was not answered, or you didn't hear your question, that's because it was answered previously. And if you can go back and view this feed, I'm sure that your question would have been answered.
I remember, like I said, when it comes to drinking, public drinking is against the law, you know. But private drinking on a private property or in a hotel that's private, or some private property, you're allowed to do that, you know. So you want to get drunk on the hotel compound and you don't leave the hotel, then get drunk. But when you're on the beach, which is public property, or in the sea, then you have to remember the public drinking laws.
You know what? This question doesn't necessarily pertain to the SI that we're talking about.
So why you ask me?
So I won't ask you. And I believe
Go ahead, man, go ahead.
and the Prime Minister already addressed it, but it's from a media personality. So they like saying I like Loudon, but I'm a Loudon. I'll ask this question. With regards to Guillermo Foreman.
Who?
Guillermo Foreman, the gentleman that was at the border.
Yes.
Did he break any law? And if so, what kind of charges could be levied against him?
Well, from what I was told by the police, is that he entered Belize. The borders are closed. So he broke the law. So he will be charged for entering the country illegally.
And that's quite simple.
That's it. You know, people have this concept about no man's land. You're not going to no man's land, you know. You're either in Belize or Mexico, one out of the two. And that space between the bridge that Chetomal and the actual immigration,
It's still Belize.
that Belize, you know. So you can't say, well, I don't reach the immigration point and I'm in Belize yet. Man, you're in Belize, man.
Once you cross the mid-channel
You're
of the
in
Rio
Belize.
Hondo.
You're in Belize.
All right, well, EAG, thank you so much. I don't know if there will be any other changes forthcoming in the next few weeks. The Prime Minister said that might be a possibility, but for now, we'll see how this goes. And we ask that everybody follow the laws. You've been very clear in explaining them. And like I said, they can always go back and view this webcast from the beginning if they didn't hear some of their questions answered. I guarantee you that they were answered at some point during this webcast.
And I like to say, as I say, I get some questions and queries about working at night. If you're on private property, you know, and especially if you own the business and you're on private property and you're doing stock taking, for example, you're not open to the public, then that shouldn't be a difficulty. If you have workers who are on shifts and by working a certain time, they're working within the required time under the labor laws, then that should work if they're doing non-intrusive stock-taking type of work. But be careful that if these people are on that compound and it's private property, they must stay there till 5 in the morning. They're not allowed to go to and from work. And if you work for yourself, well then you know, the law don't make no contemplation for you overwork yourself. So if you own a business and you want to do stock taking in your business and you live where you work, for example, then there should be no issue about that.
Okay. And another question. We have a couple questions trickling in, but I mean, it would.
The answer is no. No sweetheart pass.
It's not in regards to that.
No
I think you've
sweetheart
been very clear on that for the past 2 months. No, when it comes
But
to
the number one request we still have. Over 3,000 requests for sweetheart pass.
and you've signed how many?
Lone man.
And you signed how
Like
many?
only man need for work after 8 at night. No women request no curfew pass, you know. Just man. Man, look here.
So, when it comes to graduation ceremonies,
No.
10 people. I mean, I
Well,
think.
like I said.
But if you don't say it, it appears that it's fine. So
No. But I mean, no. The law doesn't provide for it, then it's not fine. So the graduation ceremonies haven't been sorted out yet. And like I said, you mentioned earlier before we were about to close off, it will change again, you know. And in what direction it changes will be determined by how we behave now. If we behave responsibly now, then there could be more easing of restrictions. If we behave reckless, then the restrictions could be more stringent and more strict. So how we progress is determined by how we behave now.
I have somebody calling me and to ask me a question when I'm on here. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess that's it. Well, I guess we'll wrap up now, Attorney General. Thank you again for being with us. And thank you to the public for tuning in and answering your questions. I hope we've been able to alleviate some of the concerns that you've had. And remember, as always, to practice safe social distancing. Wash your hands regularly. If you must leave home, make sure you're wearing a mask at all times. Cough and sneeze into your elbows and tissue. Dispose of it properly. And again, wash your hands 6 feet away at all times. And if you have any questions or concerns, there's the Ministry of Health hotline that's available to you, 0800 MOH CARE, which is 0800 664 2273. As always, all this information is available online at www.covid19.bz.
If you could please remind people that on the COVID website, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will have the form for people who want to come back into Belize, an application form so that people can fill it out online. So nobody could say, well, the maternity and the last.
Right.
And then that they will facilitate you as to how you come back in.
And there's also on that website I have to make mention of, and we'll have more on this later in the week or the week's over, but by next week we'll do a full Ask the Experts with regards, they've made the media rounds with regards to the self-assessment app for COVID-19. And that's very important in accumulating data and tracking when it comes to containing the virus and preventing the spread of the virus in Belize. So that's all on the www.covid19.bz website. Also, this the new SI will be posted in its entirety.
It will be signed by the Governor General today, and it will become effective when you wake up the morning.
Tomorrow,
May 15th.
okay. And that will be posted on the Government of Belize Press Office Facebook page, as well as the Government of Belize Press Office website, which is www.pressoffice.gov.bz. Once again, thank you for tuning in and have a nice day.